Hello, everyone. That Weems guy here for another episode. Tonight's going to be the third round robin. And the purpose of a round robin is I don't have to think of any questions or come up with any topics. The panelists do it. I sent out 6 invitations today and got 3 people here. That was last minute on my part, sending them out. So we're just going to count on Ryan Mccann stepping up and carrying the load here tonight and taking the rest of us to victory. So Ryan, say hello and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ryan Mccann. I'm a firearms instructor in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. I work at Citizen Safety Academy and On Target Shooting Sports. Mostly we just do gateway students. I did just start my own company that's got a little bit more intermediate work in it, but for the most part, it's all gateway brand new students. And so that's what I tend to do.
All right. You also worked as an armed courier for a while, right?
Yeah. From the time I was 21 till I was 27, in that area, I wandered around in big giant trucks wearing body armor that smelled terrible, and trucks that had no AC, taking care of other people's money. I did do that.
I don't know if it's possible to keep body armor from smelling horrible.
No, it's a very unique stink. Like nothing else smells like sweaty Kevlar. There's nothing.
And once it gets that smell, you can't do anything to get it out.
No, it's done. I remember the time I first discovered, like I was like leaning down to grab something in the truck and like the front of my shirt popped open and I caught this stink and I was like, what is that god awful stench? What is that terrible smell? I didn't know. And then I got back to the barn and we were unloading and I had popped my shirt so I could take my vest off and I was like, oh my God,
it's me.
I'm the thing.
Yeah, it's not comfortable and it does not smell good after the first year or so of wearing it.
No.
All right. Speaking of stinky body armor, Eric Lund.
Hello, I'm Eric Lund. I've been currently in law enforcement. I coming on quickly on the tail end of a totally unremarkable career, coming up 29 years. I also had some opportunity to shoot professionally. So I was a competition shooter, firearms instructor, and a whole host of instructor credits, everything from sticks and knives to handguns and machine guns and everything in between. So yeah, that's kind of who I am and what I do.
And you are the only guest on the show that has ever been a Division II running back.
I have.
Who's going to win the D2 championship this year? There's only one correct answer.
Westchester.
No. It's Valdosta State, brother.
Come on.
In the only head-to-head matchup between our two schools, which one won?
Westchester.
No.
You might have to do some research on that one.
I already have. Trust me.
Yep.
But I'm just in the stands. I wasn't good enough to play. So.
Well, that was a long time ago in a galaxy far away from me.
There you go. All right. Shannon Pable.
Hello. I am currently a firearms instructor, mainly for women. I am a retired landscape designer. So now I'm kind of enjoying my retirement and teaching women and enjoying it. Don't have a whole lot to add. Y'all have all the experience. I just hang out and learn from y'all.
And you're based in Northeast Georgia.
I am near you. I wish you'd come back and start teaching again here.
Well, tell people like the name of your company and like where you teach and stuff.
Okay. It's Shannon's Garden and Gun Gallery. So sort of a play on the landscape thing. I do have a website. I'm not website savvy, but I did pay somebody to make it for me, and it's under shannonpable.com. I'm also on Facebook. You can find me there under Shannon Pable. Also Shannon's Garden and Gun Gallery on Facebook.
He's also a great line partner at the range, just in case you're wondering.
Likewise.
Hopefully I will have stuff locally here in Georgia next year. Just this year was just it never worked out when my schedule had an opening and the range was available for me to do anything locally. And so everything I've taught so far this year has been on the road, but Yeah, I'm in talks with Red Hill about doing some stuff next year if we
Oh,
get
that's
this
good.
schedule.
We
So
miss you.
it would be nice to actually sleep in my own bed and
Yeah.
get up and go teach a firearms class. So, all right, so I will start us off with the first topic tonight. I just had to actually cancel an upcoming class in October because I am having hand surgery here in a couple of weeks, and it is on my dominant hand. And so I will be a lefty for a period of time. Now, thankfully, I've spent a lot of time working, support hand operation because Shannon, you've taken my critical pistol skills class, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was probably one of the toughest classes I'd taken.
Yeah, well, it's been renamed to Pistol Craft 4 because you're going to come through 1, 2, and 3 before we come to that class. It's
Oh,
never
yeah.
going to be taught as a standalone again. Yes, I feel confident in being able to walk around with the gun on the left side. But if we look at it in the grand scheme of things, and we look at percentage of time that we should spend training with, say, something like support hand only skills, you say, well, it rarely, if ever, happens in private citizen context that you have to use a firearm, so you shouldn't spend much time on it. You get one answer. But if you look at it from the context of my strong hand may be out of commission for a long time because of an injury or such, wouldn't it be nice to already have those skills before I'm put in that position? So, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
So this is actually one's kind of personal to me. I did a lot of combat sports growing up. I boxed at paper college, and I wrestled all the way through middle school and high school. A lot of jujitsu and Muay Thai, and that stuff is really hard on the hands and the wrists and the shoulders. So I constantly, my right hand and elbow and shoulder are kind of constantly messed up. It's never, most of the time it's fine. It's not like crippling or anything, but there are times, particularly if I'm working out really heavy or I'm training really heavy, where my whole right arm, it gets hard to lift it past, the shoulder and my wrist and my elbow. Like grabbing the gun is actually hard. So shooting left-handed, although I do admit when I practice support hand only, I generally practice as if I only have one hand.
Yeah.
I rarely do two-handed shooting with my left hand because I operate under the assumption if I'm not using my right hand, it's because I can't. So I tend to do that. I think it's important. I think doing a lot of stuff support hand only makes you better all around. Like you don't spend a whole day shooting support hand only or doing support hand stuff and then come out of it like, well, I'm not any better now. Like when you switch the gun back to the main hand and you get both hands back on it, you find you tend to be a lot better overall, or I do anyway.
All right, Mr. Lund.
Yeah, I find that it is part of just being a better all around competent with your firearm, right? Like you made the point, it very rarely ever happens, right? Well, when you look at the total number of people that carry firearms for self-defense and protection of family, and you look at the percentages of those people that actually have to use them, that very rarely ever happens where they actually have to use them. So the idea that, well, I'm really not going to use it, or it's a very, very remote chance that I may have to use my support hand. What goes along with that is if it comes time that you are going to have to use it, you're really going to need those skills, because what are we making the assumption? One, that I'm already in some type of gunfight or some type of serious situation. I've already taken some level of damage, and it's enough damage to mitigate my skills to the point where I can't even use my now dominant hand, and I have to transition and start using my support hand. My posture now from a fighting position goes from trying to be aggressive and dominant and dictate the fight to being in a purely defensive mode. How long can I hold this guy off until he gets tired and wants to go away, or the police come, or something else intervenes? because you take that kind of a hit or you sustain that kind of a damage, you're still not going to be aggressive and start trying to drive that fight with that kind of damage. So as part of taking your individual skill set seriously, you need to have some level of support hand competency for that what if scenario. And it's just like car insurance, right? I don't anticipate being in an accident, but there are things that happen beyond my control that put me in those situations. I don't anticipate taking a hit and taking a severe enough hit that I can no longer use my strong side or strong hand. I have to go support side only. But it gives me more confident about my skill level and a positive mental attitude to survive that situation if I have some competent level skills. Now, if you want to take that to the nth degree, the guys that I have seen that are truly ambidextrous, left, right, they have an impressive ability, especially when we start talking about long guns and shotguns and rifles, be able to switch shoulders and take advantage and do this stuff. And when you see somebody that has that level of competency and skill set, I mean, I just sit back and just mentally golf clap them. I mean, nice job. You know, I mean, it's impressive to watch. So I think on some level, you have to have some level of competency. What that means is individual. I have my own standards. You have yours. Everyone has their level of what they feel is confident. And I think if you want to be an all around competent shooter, and you take self-defense seriously, then support side skill sets are important.
Shannon?
Yeah, like Ryan said, I think overall it makes you a better shooter. I practice, you know, strong hand and support hand every week. But something I remember that Tom Givens did in our master instructor class was he had us wear a mirror holster. I think I borrowed your holster for that class. So I could draw from the left side, shoot from the left side, which is my support hand. And he said, what you're experiencing is like what a new shooter experiences. And that was an eye opener. So I thought, yeah, you know, because you're really having to think about when your left hand is holding it and then your right hand and, oh, where do my thumbs go? And it's just, you're having to flip everything around. But it, you know, like Greg was saying, it's definitely an important skill set to have. You may not have access to your dominant hand all the time. And it's nice to know or have that confidence to know I can shoot my target with my left hand or my right hand.
Yeah, like Ryan was saying, when I practice support hand, I'm typically only doing support hand only. Because I know the theory that if that's where the gun is, it's because my dominant hand is not working.
Yeah.
But I do see value in the theory of doing everything mirror image. For one thing, if you have to teach a student that shoots from the opposite hand as you, you know, you're not, well, take everything I say and do it reverse.
That's what I was going to say about that. Like, that's one of the other things. Like if you, I've taken like basic level, like, pistol, not like the very basic level classes, but like where you start working from the holster, defensive pistol level 1 that I've done them with a left-handed holster before. And because it is one thing I mean, there is some honesty in saying, okay, do what I do, but just do it reverse. They're like, okay, imagine it's this foot forward instead of this foot forward. There is some of that, right? But like it doesn't really translate that way when somebody's sitting there staring at you in front of a classroom being like, you know, just reverse my hands, you know, just, I want you to, like, not everybody has the spatial, like, mental skills to be able to look at your hands on there and be like, oh, well, okay, I'll just swap that. That's not like a common universal mental ability where there's very little people that actually spatially can just like look at what you're doing and actually put it into effect on their own. Like, you have to be able to explain it to them. And if you've never done it before, it doesn't matter if it's right hand or left hand. If you've never done it before, then how are you going to explain it to them? I mean, you can say grab with like I even get to the point now in classes where I just stop saying right hand, left hand. It's always gun hand, support hand. After I do that question at the beginning of class, where I'm like, how many lefties do we have in here? Right, and to see if we have any of the 12 percenters. From that point on, it's gun hand, support hand. Gun hand support. I want to get into your idea that like one of these hands does this, the other hand does that. It doesn't really matter particularly which one of those hands it is, but I don't think you can effectively convey that technique or how to do certain things if you've never actually done it with your left hand.
Yeah, especially if you have a new shooter.
Yeah, with no context, like didn't play duck hunt.
Exactly.
Like you have to like show them, like you have to figure out ways to explain sight picture other than like putting sights up on the board. You have to like, there's got to be another way to explain this. Like, so there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into it that if you've actually done it, like spent, several times, like once, at least several times in your career, gone through like an 8-hour course doing things only left-handed, it really helps. Like the critical pistol skills that we went through, that class helped me, Lee, not in terms of like, I mean, it did help in terms of like doing the stuff manipulation left-handed. There was a lot of stuff that got answered in that. But one of the things that helped, that I called you like, I don't know, it must have been like 6 months ago when I had that one student come in. Because I'm also our chief range safety officer at the range and or instructor on staff. So when new shooters come in, one of us has to go out with them. And she only had one hand. She had no hand below her elbow. So like, the critical pistol skills class, like there was so much stuff from that class. I was like, oh, wow, I can actually use this to help somebody. And like that, this is because I hadn't really gotten a chance to use it beyond my own personal edification over since I took that. It was like 2 or 3 years ago that I took that critical pistol skills. But knowing how to do it really helped me teach a person that only had one hand.
That was a fun phone call for me, because I readily tell students in that class, so like, look, this is a 1% skill. This is something that, you do when you've got all the other stuff mastered, and, come out and practice this stuff once a year. I practice it when I teach the class, typically. The only example that I can point to in real life in which it became apparent, which is why I actually kind of started teaching the class, was a rookie cop near me got shot in the hand and did not know how to get in his dominant hand, did not know how to get his pistol out of his duty holster to deal with the threat, and asked to respond to EMT to get his pistol out of the holster for him. And so I immediately, started working on that with my guys on the range. And, so I always wonder, how does it translate over to the private citizen? And then when I got that call from you, it's like, well, hey, we had a good success story.
Dude, it was exactly what I needed. She's like, I don't have a hand. And I'm like, this is going to sound weird, but I actually know how to do this with one hand. I can show you how to do this with one hand. So that was it. Not just in terms of like your own performance as a shooter. If you are a firearms instructor and all that entails and what it actually means, then like you need to be able to do this. Like, how do you teach a person with one hand? How do you teach a person that's deaf? Like all those like weird little things, and like all the different little things that you do, like the classes you take, you can pick stuff up like that from there.
Yeah, kind of an offshoot from that. One of the things that people want to talk about is like grabbing the ground with your toes and everything. I was in a class recently where, as a student, where the instructor talked to the student about getting more aggressive and maybe doing that, and the student said, "I've got 2 club feet."
Oops.
Yeah.
It's like you ran into the student that only had one hand.
Yeah. It's weird. Like, but it happens.
We've got to have some depth to our teaching skill to be able to deal with those type situations.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Checking in. Go ahead, Eric.
Another thing I could offer up in that is just we circle back to how relevant are these skills, right? How much time do I have to put in? And where I said earlier that you need to reach a level of competency and be confident with that skill set. One thing that I've noticed over my career of doing simunitions and being involved, not just with my agency, but other agencies playing bad guys, I have noticed over years and years of this, that when I do simunitions and I role play as the aggressor, I take an inordinate number of hits in my hands and forearms. Because if I'm aiming at you, my hands and forearms are the center mass of my target that you're aiming at me. So to put that training in context for your students, when I teach those skills, I'm like, if I'm locked in and I'm a threat and you're engaging me, what is in front of all of my upper body that is going to get hit? So I use that as an example to put that in context, that when you get that, well, that very rarely ever happens. I'm like, you're right, but it rarely happens, only to the point that you're involved in a shooting. When you're involved in a shooting, I just know from this experience, I take a high level of hits in my hits and forearms because they're center mass of what they're shooting. So that reinforces to me, and hopefully reinforces to the students, why this is important. Because you may not be in a gunfight, but when you're there could be a higher probability you take this kind of hit than you realize.
John Hearn, are you good to go? John? Apparently not. John checked in here just a second ago, but apparently he has vanished. Oh. All right, so we will throw it to Ryan Mccann for Ryan to ask his question.
So what do you do? Oh, hold on. What do you do when only one or two students show up for your class? Like mentally, like, because like say you had a bunch, and it only really works like in my context where we have the fixed location and we're always offering carry permit class or safety class or something like that. But it's one person. Like, I'm salaried, I'm going to get paid regardless. I have to be here. Like, how do you mentally stay in? Like when it's just one person, there or two people, maybe three in that classroom, and you're just, for the next 8 hours, it's you and them. Like, how do you stay in? Because it's really easy to check out, I think, for a lot of people at that point where, you expected a lot more to be here. Like, so how do you stay checked in? That's what I want to know.
Eric?
So I'll use that to my advantage. So when I get a smaller than expected group, or I get a smaller group, rather than go with the negative connotation of, well, we didn't get many people show up, there's not here, as I'll spin it the other way. I'm like, hey, this is awesome. Like, we only got a smaller group. Not only are you guys going to get plenty of reps and plenty of individual work, but I anticipate that I'm going to be able to even get you some more material than what you came to show or what you showed up for, because we're going to be able to work through this material faster and get you more reps and get you more confident in what you're doing. And because now I don't have 10 guys on the line or 2 relays of 5. I've got 3 people I can put on the line all at the same time and start rolling with them. And I try to give them kind of a reward for being the ones that showed up for whatever reason. The weather, we get out here in Georgia and, you run classes in June and July, and it's 95 and high humidity. You get some people that are like, yeah, I'm not coming. And they don't show up. So the people that do show up, I actually try to reward them and try to give them material that wasn't, that's not part of the class, or that next level material, or, and just take that opportunity to give them more than what they expected. And then hopefully they go out and on their reviews are, man, this was awesome. It was a small class. We got a lot of repetitions, and it just worked out really good that way. And so hopefully we get a lot of positive reviews. So I try to use that as an advantage.
All right. Shannon?
Since I teach a lot of one-on-ones, I really like it. I like a small group. I can really zero in. Just like what Greg was saying, I can spend more time with that person, really watch them, see what they might be doing right, what they're doing wrong. but during COVID, there were a lot of classes that we only had, just a couple people show up. And but it was great. It was good for them. They got a lot more out of the class. They got a lot more one-on-one time. So I don't have a problem with it at all. I actually prefer a small group.
All right. I haven't had a class in a long time where only like a couple of people showed up. I have had some here that have had like half capacity, and we only ran one relay instead of two. Now I can think about, in the early days of my company, I was renting an indoor range over in Metro Atlanta on Sundays to teach. And if I only got like 3 students, I taught the class for $50. And I just had to keep plowing through that because I didn't want to get the reputation of, well, he's just going to cancel the class, so I'm not going to bother signing up. And so I went and I soldiered on and taught a lot of those classes with just 2 or 3 students. And those students help start spreading the word and help get the business going. So if you're an instructor and you're facing that, you can quit or you can soldier on and you can get it going, and you still have to deliver the good product. What the challenge that I find in, say, like you've got a class that you plan on, say, a minimum of 10 students, and you're going to do 2 5-man relays, and you only get 5 students. So you're running the one relay. The challenge I see in that is it's hard to keep those students. It's like every time they go back to load magazines, to get them back to the line, because then when they go back, they want to stop and talk and everything. And so it seems like you start losing, an extra 5, an extra 10, an extra 15 minutes every time we have to go load max. Whereas when you're running 2 relays, you can do your teaching points. You run the first relay through the drill, and then you send them back to load mags, drink water, go use the bathroom or whatever, while you then run the second group through the drill. That reinforces your teaching points. And that to me, a class flows better. It's funny because I've taught the same class here a couple of times recently. Once I had 5, once I had double digit numbers of students, and we got through the material faster with the more students because there was less downtime. So, Ryan, what do you do when you face that? Or I guess Ryan.
So I started doing coaching before I did anything else, because I just started working at a gun range. I wasn't an instructor yet. I had carried a gun for a living in a paltry way that wasn't like overly cool. I had done a little bit of training. I was just the only one that worked at that place back in the day that actually had done any sort of training and had any inclination to actually teach. So it started as, just go out there with this person and make sure that they know what they're doing. And then it was, all right, would you like to do a safety class one night a week? That I used to, when I first started teaching it, it was free. And nobody showed up. Akil Kadir is my mentor, and I had just gone through this was years ago. I just gone through basic pistol instructor with him, and I was getting ready to go into the range master basic instructor. And I'm like, why is nobody showing up for this class? And he's like, because it's free. He's like, they won't. People just they think if it's free, there's nothing of value there. He's like, charge $20, and I guarantee you, people will start showing up. And sure enough, like $20, and people started showing up. And but it was always 1, 2, 3, 4. Like now the safety classes are bigger. We generally have between like 6 and 15 people on a pretty consistent basis. But for the first 4 or 5 years I was doing it, it was really consistently like 1, 2 people, where some lady walks in and you put a blue gun down on the table in front of her and she just burst into tears. It's just like, you're like, oh my God, like nobody told me about this. Like nobody told me this was going to be a thing. It doesn't bother me. I like it. I'm glad somebody's there. I'm continually shocked that anybody wants to come and hang out with me for that amount of time and listen to what I have to say about it. So anytime anybody shows up, I'm just pretty stoked that that they're there. So now it can be if you're at the tail end of a long week. And this is like the last thing you got to do before your weekend, before your days off. And like one person shows up for that 2-hour safety class and you're like, okay, all right, let's do this. Right. But after about 15 minutes, I'll be fine. I'm just glad they're there. Like, there's not a lot of people that get to do what I do for a living. So I tend to be really glad that I'm actually getting to do it. It doesn't particularly bother me if attendance numbers are low. But that's unique because I'm a salaried instructor in the private world, which isn't a common thing. That a lot of the times it's you have to hustle up your own work and make your own money. I'm getting paid the same regardless. So I think it's a little bit like I think it's a little bit high horsey of me to be like, oh no, you just kind of suck it up and be glad they're there. I do understand that.
Oh, John Hearn has checked back in and he is sitting at Gunsight and he has spotty internet.
Yeah, I know he was bragging about that, sitting at Gunsight.
But hopefully John's internet will work for him to answer this question because he is an authority on, low attendance numbers in classes.
Wow. That's almost as mean as my comment that I was thinking earlier when Ryan was shocked that he got something useful out of his class. I'm like, we're all kind of shocked by that.
All right.
But low attendance classes, I kind of see those as my chance to play around and tweak and give more individual attention. So I like and sometimes when I end up with less people, that's when I'll try maybe the third or the fourth way to communicate something. It's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes you get strong numbers, sometimes you don't. And I think that we tend to forget how much you learn to teach better by just teaching. So even it may be a low class, dude, it's a chance to teach. It's a chance to hone your craft. So, get everything you can out of it.
All right. Well, John, while you have the air, ask your question.
One of the things I've been pondering for a while is the business, for lack of a better word, seems to be very, very focused on solely developing technical shooting skill without much concern for teaching people how to apply it. So I heard some mention earlier about force on force and stuff like that. And that stuff is great, but really rare. So I guess my question for the group is, how do you help your students contextualize the training you're offering them?
Eric Lund.
Well, contextualize. So I try to push that there are two distinctions. We have, I kind of classify my courses as operator classes and gunfighting classes. And I phrase it this way: before I can teach you how to race a car, I have to teach you how to drive a car. Right. So before I can teach you how to fight with a gun, I have to teach you how to run a gun. And the contextualizing comes in and understanding that these classes that I'm doing are operator. They're skill set based classes. They're the classes to improve your skill sets and competency. You go through one of my operator classes, it doesn't mean you're ready to be a gunfighter. All right. All it means is it's
Wait a minute. You said before the show started, we're going to break the internet. Did I just hear a grandmaster admit that there's a difference between running the gun and fighting with a gun?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I will freely admit that. Yes. And, but that's not my break the internet moment. I'm saving that one for later.
All right.
I'd point out that they've banned Ben Steger for less. So you're going to be the next one to go.
No. I don't get in those politics of that anymore. But no, it's contextualizing it is, look, what we're learning here is how to run the gun. It's very similar to if you work your way through any type of martial arts system and you get to a black belt, the black belt isn't the end, it's the beginning. Now you have the basic skills in the art to start really developing it. So when you come through any level of classes that focus on learning how to run the gun, they're not teaching you how to fight. They're just teaching you to learn how to be competent with the system that you choose. So when you put that in context, you know, I tell my students that gunfighting is problem solving at speed, right? Thinkers are greater than shooters. I need people that can think critically in compressed time frames and evaluate what's going on. Anyone can pull a trigger. I can teach anyone to pull a trigger, right? But what I need are people that can critically think at speed to solve problems. And not every problem has a trigger pull for a solution. In fact, most of them very, very rarely do. So I try to put the context between driving the car and racing the car, the context between learning how to shoot a gun to learning how to fight with a gun. Now, if you want to have conversations about, well, where do we go to get that next level? That's a larger, deeper conversation on a different topic. But that's essentially how I try to contextualize what I do with my students.
Shannon?
Yeah, I mainly teach basic handgun classes and one-on-ones, mainly for women. And usually women that are brand new, they'll say, I need help with my gun. I've never shot a gun before. And I need a gun safety class is usually what they end up saying. And so usually I start out by telling them that the very first thing you're going to learn are the safety rules and how to safely, as much as possible, handle your firearm. And you're going to learn how the firearm works. But if you walk away with anything or remember anything, I just want you to learn the safety rules, and that's it for being a basic handgun, for being a basic class. So I don't really, I guess to answer John's question, I don't have such a huge assortment of classes where I'm going to differentiate between them like Greg is. I do a lot of one-on-ones with intermediate shooters. I've had some that want to get into competition shooting. And like Greg was saying, there's definitely a difference. Learning how to shoot competitively versus just learning the basics, learning how to handle your firearm. So I don't know if that really answers John's question.
Well, I think it does. If that's not the context of what you're doing with your business, you're dealing primarily with the gateway student.
Right.
This really in the baby step phase, and they're just having to get familiar with the gun, much less think about fighting with the gun.
I also want to point out that I made such an impression on Shannon that she thinks my name is Greg, even though it says Eric on the screen, but I'm good.
Right. Maybe it would help if I put my readers on. There you go. It does say Eric.
That's okay. I've got mine handy just in case.
Right.
I'm sorry about that. I kept doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like now I forgot what I was going to say.
All right. Well, then we'll go to Ryan Mccann for his answer.
Context is a weird thing, right? Because I do teach, mostly what I teach are carry permit safety class. That's the large majority of what I teach. I do teach for Citizen Safety Academy a lot of basic pistol instructor. And I find that tends to be where I tend to start really hammering more on context. But in a carry permit class, a lot of the time it's trying to explain to people that this isn't what you think it's going to be, right? The carry permit class, like everybody, like a lot of people tend to really focus on, like a lot of instructors around here anyway, tend to really focus on the shooting part of it, the shooting test and the written test. And I get that, because that's what you have to do to get the students, pass, which is what you want. But I mean, if I was going to design a class to teach you how to shoot, it wouldn't be 6 hours of PowerPoint and 45 minutes on the range. It would be 45 minutes of PowerPoint and 6 hours on the range if that's what I was trying to do. So in my opinion, like the Tennessee carry permit class is at its heart a legal use of force class, and trying to explain to people when it's okay to use your gun or when you should use your gun is a hard thing. Like, because there's no simple answers to that, right? I don't teach tactics. I'm not a tactics guy. I was never in the military. I was never in law enforcement. I've taken tactics classes, a fair amount of them, but I don't feel like I have the background to really teach that kind of stuff. So to John's questions, like I do tend to focus more on my more intermediate stuff that I teach. I tend to focus more on, technical skills. And I'll throw like some very basic tactic stuff in there, like a difference between cover and concealment. Like don't crowd cover. It's unless you really have to, it's probably a bad idea. But trying to make thinkers, most people can't explain to you why they got their coffee this morning, why they chose where they went to eat breakfast. Like a lot of people don't really spend much time thinking about why they do anything that they do. So I have 8 hours with them to try and make them start thinking about stuff that, one, they don't want to think about. Like most people don't want to think about this stuff. Like a lot of times a carry permit class is checking the box. It's just something to do. But having to try and get them to think about like, what do you do when somebody comes into your house in the middle of the night? Do you just grab your gun, you hop out of bed and you walk out to the living room like Wyatt Earp and just, here we go, right? Is that the best plan? Or is there another way to go about this? But even if I do like hammer on them for that 8 hours, that maybe that's not the best plan. Maybe you don't need to think. Like a lot of the carry permit students that you get it's kind of like an amusement park, right? They're going once. They're probably never going to carry their gun. So like you hope the things that they do remember from this class are enough that if they do ever have to use it, that it sticks with them. I don't know. I for trying to create context and make them think, I use videos. I try to get them out of the John Wick mindset of what TV gunfights look like and what real actual gunfights look like. So I'll grab some stuff from active self-protection. I'll grab stuff just off YouTube that I can see and be like, okay, this is what it looks like when somebody actually tries to stab you. So what do? Are you going to run away? You're going to run away. When's the last time you ran anywhere? Like ran? Like somebody's like, can you outrun a 22-year-old meth head? They're basically superheroes from 2 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock in the morning. So is run the best plan? Is your pepper spray the best plan? Is your gun the best plan? But I don't have time to give them all of that. What I can do is hopefully get them thinking about it. And honestly, I haven't figured out how to like another way yet. I'm going to keep trying, but I haven't figured out a better way yet, other than to just actually tell them, like show them like what it looks like instead of what they think it's going to be like. Because that's the biggest thing I found. The biggest hurdle I found to creating competent shooters is trying to remove delusion. To remove that and hopefully get them actually thinking about these things the way they're going to happen, and not the way that when you were a kid and you war gamed out your gunfight in your head, you were always Quigley, right? I said I didn't like handguns. I didn't say I didn't know how to use them. I mean, is like, there's a lot of that kind of mentality that goes on with people, and they think they're just all of a sudden going to be able to do the thing without ever having done the thing.
To get the quote correct, he said, I never had much use for one. I didn't say I didn't know how to use it.
Oh, that's my bad. Forgive me. And tell Tom Selleck I'm sorry.
Never said I did not use it. Hearn, answer your own question.
Well, it's like what I keep thinking about. I can remember something Skip Gokenhauer said that, the problem is anytime we start launching projectiles at people, it tends to turn into a game. And, his solution was just to do, application with blue guns. I'm thinking CERT pistols might be another good venue for that. I know they make CERT pistols now in different style guns, different sizes, even 365 sizes. So I've been trying to think, could you use those to help contextualize the skills, whether it's, like a mini scenario or something like that. Part of the problem with force on force is you've got the overhead, the protection and stuff like that. And CERT guns or just blue guns, depending on what you're trying to do, might be a good way to start to do that.
All right. I tend to divide my classes into two things, kind of like what Eric was describing. I call them technical classes or application classes. And technical classes, we tend to focus purely on the technical running of the firearm, with my core philosophy of number one important thing is getting the gun between you and the bad guy in a usable form, and then pressing the trigger without moving the gun. Application wise, my flagship course on that with handguns is now what I call pistol craft. I used to call it defensive pistol skills. And what it is a live fire class that basically incorporates all of the lifestyle rules as codified by Colonel Cooper back in the day, and actually putting that into a live fire visual context that gives the student something to wrap their brain around with that versus it just being, yes, the rule says we never allow our muzzle to cover something we don't intend to shoot. Well, in the class, we put that to the test. And that's just one of my soapbox areas too, that if you, in your safety brief, give that rule, but then in your training, you allow students to violate that rule, are you not invalidating your own safety brief? I just something to throw it out. Ryan's got his hand up. Go ahead, Ryan.
Somebody mentioned in the chat the image-based decision drills thing that that Shelly and Brian do. I actually went through that, and I thought it was actually pretty useful. I actually got a fair amount out of that, and it's not the missing link. I don't think it is quite that, but it does get people to start thinking about what they're going to do and why they're going to do it. I actually like that. That was a lot more of a. I actually really enjoyed that. Like the image. I think people don't get. I think people should probably get into a shoot house or a force on force training stuff a little bit earlier than we tend to want them to. I think they probably should. I don't maybe not like full on live fire with a shoot house, but I think it might be a good idea to get people to start doing more, doing less flat range stuff earlier on. I don't think that's a bad way to go about it. The problem is you start running into issues of like legal liabilities and insurance to cover that kind of stuff. And it becomes an issue, but I would, if I had the ability or the access to a facility, I would really like to get some of my like, not like just got my carry permit level students, but like I've gone through, I don't know, defensive pistol 1 and 2. I've gone through range master combative handgun. I've gone through Brian Hill's essential pistols or something like that, and then get them into an actual application course a little earlier on. I don't think that's a bad idea. But I mean, like, what do I know?
Shannon, did you have anything you wanted to add on the image-based decisions?
Yeah. So I'm a co-leader for Armed Women of America. And so we've been running a lot of the ladies through the drills, and oh my gosh, they can't get enough of it. And it's been a real eye-opener for them. just various things, like all of a sudden you're pulling out of your driveway and some guy's at your window. What are you going to do? And so we have to take them through that thought process. And, you pull up to your driveway and you see your garage door partway open. What are you going to do? Are you going to, go in there and see what's going on? Or are you just going to sit out in your car and wait and call 911 and, or call your husband or your neighbor? Hey, did you see anything going on? So it really gets them thinking just about practical applications of things that really can happen. You see somebody, your purse is sitting over here on a bench, and you see somebody starting to filter through your purse. Well, you don't know them from Adam. Maybe it's a really big guy. You're not going to go over there and pull your gun on him. You're going to stand back, maybe from a distance. He doesn't see you. You take a picture, call 911. So it's learning what possibilities are out there so you can actually practice these decisions ahead of time. I can't tell you how many times, the ladies just kept saying, oh, I want to do this again. I want to do this again. And it was a great learning lesson, because in the process, we were also telling them about, when you can use lethal force and when it's non-lethal, or maybe you just need to de-escalate, or run, just get out of there. So it's an excellent option for teaching people. The other thing I was going to mention is not everybody needs to own a gun. There are people out there, and I would say maybe 5% of the women that I teach. I'll always bring extra, cans of OC spray, and I'll hand them out. Because there's some women that are so nervous and so afraid, and you think, oh, well, maybe time after time, you'll get used to it. There's some personality types. You just give them the palm and okay, I think this is, well, you just need to stop here, because honestly, you'll probably do more harm than good. But that's just a very small percentage. But I just wanted to, put that out there, because, we're teaching people, but there are some students where you think, yeah, they probably shouldn't have a gun on them.
All right, Hearn, you got your hand up.
Two thoughts there. I agree completely with what she just said. I think that if you're not sure whether you could kill somebody, don't carry a gun. It's just that simple. And knowing that is hugely important. Realistically, if you are pretty sure you can't kill somebody, but you walk around life with your head on a swivel, a bright flashlight, and a can of OC, you're still going to be able to solve 97% of the problems you are likely to face. You just need to be aware that's who you are, and your need to de-escalate and escape is just going to come in to that whole process earlier. I can't agree enough with what you said. The other thing I was going to throw out there about the image-based decision-making is I think that is the gateway force on force way to do it. Okay. It's almost impossible to sell force on force classes. Wants to take the ding from the marking cartridge or the airsoft and stuff like that. What we need is a gateway into that world where you're still making decisions under some kind of duress. And I was going to, I think the image-based decision-making really is kind of the gateway class for that. I did a real quick session with Shelley when we were up at the Bulwarks a couple of years ago, and it's a great, very low overhead system. It can be done live fire. It can be done dry practice. Really can't say enough about that as far as a really, really good, solid entry point for those concerns.
All right, Eric, you had your hand up, so make your comment, and then when you're done with that, ask your question.
Okay. Yeah, reference earlier, and I agree with what John said. Reference earlier to simunitions is, expensive, and there's all the issues to do it. Realize that simunitions is just part of the force on force once you've got to the gunfight part. And getting people into thinking sooner, you don't need a shooting solution for that. you can go to the classes that are managing unknown threats or managing unknown contacts, where it's the primary objective is that class is the very first, defensive mindset, which is avoidance, right? Avoiding the conflict, recognizing, doing all that stuff. And those type classes, managing unknown contacts, is where you start to develop the thinking process. So you can run a 1 or a 2 day class about managing context, giving people evil glares, setting boundaries, voicing it, hand position, if they get too close, how to break contact, all of that, which, as John mentioned, is going to encompass 97% of any type of defensive situations. But what it does is it gets people starting about thinking and solving these problems. That's not a shooting solution. Once they start to develop this mindset of, pre-assault indicators and positioning and posturing and setting boundaries, and when they break those boundaries, what's next, gets them thinking about what these next steps are going to be before we get to the simunitions and the shooting solution part. So the question, I get this quite often, is that people ask me about going to other classes and other instructors. And so my question for the group is, it's one thing when I know somebody and I'm going to reference, I recommend Lee's class or recommend John through his reputation. If Lee says he's a good guy, that's good enough for me, but when you have all of the new people that are opening up businesses and hanging out shingles and offering training, what are your red flags for other instructors that you try to vet for people? As what's a red flag that pops up for you, that if you're doing and vetting an instructor for a recommendation, what are those things that you see that and you're instantly like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. I'm not going to work with that person.
Well, you must have piqued John Hearn's interest because his hand immediately shot up. So we'll go to John.
No, I just because I think we're discussing some on the internet, people showing up. So signs that you probably don't want to train with someone is they only have one instructor certification and they have no record of ongoing training. Anybody that's serious about this stuff is going to be taking at least one outside class a year. I think a lot of us think that 2 is probably a good number for a professional firearms instructor. That may not be possible. So single certificate, only one certifying body is going to give that person a very small, limited range of knowledge. And if they don't have if they're not investing in themselves, they're not going to be investing in their students. So that's my quick way to parse that one.
Yeah, I tend to look at, does their background match the courses that they're offering? And what I mean by that is if someone has an NRA basic pistol cert or something, whatever the USCCA equivalent would be, but they're trying to teach very, high-end tactics level courses or gunfighting courses. Well, the basic pistol certification has nothing to do with actual application of use of the pistol. It's just about safely using the pistol and target shooting. And so I tend to look at that now. If someone has an NRA basic pistol certification because the state said they had to have that to be able to teach their state level concealed carry class, but then they've got 20 years of operational experience in some capacity, all right, maybe then you can extrapolate that they've got the experience to teach courses that they may be offering. I tend to look at, if I see an instructor's webpage and they have no information in a bio, or a bio is very vague, that tends to be a red flag for me. One of the reasons my bios on mine are pages so description is there was an instructor that was working here in Georgia that was posting awards that he had allegedly received on his webpage, that those awards don't exist. Because he was like putting them in terms that he had received the Georgia Post, which is Peace Officer Standard Training Award for such and such. There's no such thing for that. And so I was kind of in a poke back thing of being very descriptive and very accurate in everything that I had put on mine, just so local students could contrast with that. The other thing I look for is, are the courses that people are teaching, are they relevant to the student? For instance, there was a group that was operating here in Georgia that was putting private citizens in training scenarios in which they were conducting traffic stops. What on earth? You know, if they've not had the basic training, not saying that private citizens shouldn't be able to get that training, but it's just, okay, you're taking people who have no context, no frame of reference for the law, and now we're going to throw them into the scenario in which they're, quote, a law enforcement officer. That doesn't translate into their world. Getting robbed on the parking lot translates into their world. That kind of thing. I look for another red flag for me is people teaching team tactics to people who just happen to sign up for the same class. No. Now, if it's like a husband and wife, or you bring a shooting buddy team, you know, something like that, and you're going, some people you interact with regularly in real life, that I can see as valid. Eric and I were actually in a class together as students. It was a rifle class, and rifle instructor class, no less. And the first exercise we did after everyone checked 0 on their rifle was someone called for a 4-man bounding overwatch exercise. And Eric and I were there with Clark Sparrow, who's another instructor in our area. And we knew that the 3 of us were going to be 3 of the 4 men on our team. And I looked around for whoever had their equipment put together correctly. And I walked over to a guy and I said, looks like your equipment is squared away. Would you like to be on a team with us? He said, yes. And I said, now I understand, here are the rules. If you shoot me, these other 2 guys are going to shoot you. If you shoot one of them, the other 2 of us, are you willing to accept those rules? He says, yes, actually I am. Thank you for letting me be on your team. And finally, we actually called a stop to it as it started. Whoa. This is just not, this isn't how this class should be progressing. So, yeah, those are just some of the things that I look at. Ryan, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
So that's one of those things we look for when we're vetting instructors is continuing education, right? When I finally decided I was gonna like really lean into this, like I'm gonna be a firearms instructor thing, that was about 7 years ago. And I have promised myself that I would get at least 100 formal hours of training every year. Now that's not all, you know, trigger pressing stuff, right? There's been a lot of adult education theory, medical stuff, legal stuff, all that stuff, right? So you're looking for that, but like, there are local instructors that I know that like they go to classes, but like, and they continually educate themselves, but it's not what I would call legitimate education, right? So like we tell students like when you're in classes, like veteran instructors, do they continually educate themselves? Like that's one of the first things that we tell them to look for. Like, do they continually educate themselves? And I'm like, I think there is a way where people can continually educate themselves, just very poorly. Like that's a thing. And it gets how aside from like, you know, continual education, are they teaching stuff beyond their skill level? Are they teaching stuff that they shouldn't be teaching? How do you like, it's like teaching discernment. Like, is there like, there's no way to teach discernment. I think the only way you actually learn how to discern is from like hanging around people that are actually really squared away and do things correctly. And then when you encounter people that aren't, you can be like, oh, okay, well, this is nonsense. This is tomfoolery. But like, I don't know if like the average person that like we want to send through a carry permit class going out into the world has that discernment. I think that comes from time. So how do you like So, I mean, so what you do, like if you have a good local training community, is you refer them to people you recommend and you trust, right? But there is a level of like, when I always tell students they can contact me about if they're getting ready to take a class, like contact me, like send me the link, let me take a look at it. It's a small community. I've either trained with them or trained for them or taught with them or taught for them. It's not that big of a community. Like, so the fact that I've never heard of them tends to mean something, because it's not that big of a community. But how do you like teach them discernment, like in that way? Like, just because the whole when you said like the certifications that aren't real on somebody's profile, like that was that there's a local guy that's got he's got an honorary degree from like some sort of Eastern martial arts school that we all know is just nonsense. Like it's a fun thing. Like anytime he pops up, we're like, oh, it's this guy again. But he has got a lot of people that come and train with him. And like, where do you draw the line between like being like trying to be a professional educator, like, which is what I think most of us are trying to do, and being professional and doing that, and then like talking crap about other instructors? Because I never want to do that. I don't ever want to like be in a class and talk crap about an instructor. I don't want to. It's not my thing. I'm not a crab. I've never been a crab. I'm not going to be a crab. Like, the rising tide, in my opinion, tends to carry most ships. Maybe not all, but most ships. So as long as they're getting education, but there is a point where like, how do you go about telling people like man, if you train with that guy and something happens, you're gonna end up in prison or dead. Like, how do you? I don't know how to do that. I was hoping you guys might know how to do that.
Well, we'll let Shannon give her answer.
Well, first off, I always like to look for somebody, that's well-rounded. Thank God for Range Master. And as soon as, if I see that, okay, I know what their training's like. If everything is just, well, I don't even want to mention certain organizations because I do have certifications with those other organizations. But if I just see a long list with just one of those organizations, I kind of wonder, they haven't been exposed to a lot of different types of instructors. The other thing I noticed is there's a lot of ranges that have classes, but they don't even list who the instructor is. It's just, handgun essentials taught by who knows. I see a lot of that. And, like I said, I mainly teach basic. I'll teach a little bit of intermediate. But if my ladies are looking for something more, thank goodness we have a lot of really good, solid instructors here in the Southeast that I can lead them where to go. But I'll usually tell them, don't sign up at, range X over here if you don't even know who the instructor is. That to me, you're just throwing money out the window. I mean, you might be lucky. You might get a really good instructor, but you don't know. So again, thank God for Range Master and putting out some solid instructors. So that's the first thing I say. If it says Range Master, you're good.
Eric, answer your own question.
So the two things I look for right off the bat, because you get people that come to you and, you don't always have the time to go and vet other instructors for them. So kind of my two red flags, and Lee and I have talked about this before, is one, and Lee touched upon it. If you can't list your credentials because you're some super government ninja and you've been to some school and you can't disclose where you at, I got no use for you. We were talking about another group that popped up around us here in Atlanta, and they had a very impressive resume, a cadre of instructors that were all high level, very important military LE guys, but none of them used their real names. They all had their call signs. And I'm like, look, dude, we're not doing black ops here. If you can't put your name down and you can't put your experience and your skill set for people to look at you and say, yeah, you have the qualifications that I'm willing to pay you money, then that's a red flag right there. So that's my first one. The second one is demos. There are certain instructors in the industry that either don't do demos or demonstrations of what they're doing or live fire, or they don't believe in demos. And to me, a demonstration is a critical part of the learning process, right? So if you are an instructor who doesn't believe in demonstrations, probably John's probably better at coming up with what that percentage would be, but you're probably, in my estimation, you're missing out on 50% of the way people learn and how they're going to process what you're trying to teach them. So my two red flags I kick out to people right away is like, if they don't list who they are and they don't list their resume, and or if you fire that through the grapevine or vetting them that they don't do demos, then yeah, they're off my list. And really, maybe it's because I've gotten older and crabbier or whatever you want to call it, but there is no central resource for us as instructors to go in there and get rated. You can't look up on some website and say, oh, look, John Q. Law over here, he's got a B+ rating as an instructor. So on some level, we don't want to talk bad about other instructors, like Ryan said, but on some level, when you get to a certain level of just plain idiocy, I feel it's incumbent upon us to warn people away from them. And I have no problem calling them out by name. Now, I will give a lot of latitude to instructors with different views, different techniques. But there are some that are just, Lee and I were joking about the other day, whoever that guy was that was doing that central axis relock technique. And I'm just like, yeah, no, I got no use for that dude. So, I think on some level it's incumbent upon us to police ourselves with the fringes, because there's a couple other guys that we could talk about if we want to go down that road. But there are certain people in this industry who are just truly doing a disservice. Like Ryan said, they're going to get people hurt. And when we come across those people, I think it's our obligation to somebody. I'm not going to go out of my way and talk crap about them, but somebody asks me, I'm going to be like, yeah, no, stay away from that dude. So
there is one instructor out there that I don't know if he's necessarily an instructor, but there's one internet firearms personality out there that Eric has a special love for, and that he has now sent me so many of these guys' videos to scream about them that they are starting to, his videos are starting to show up as suggestions on my YouTube feed. So I've had to get
truly entertaining. It truly is entertaining, some of the stuff he comes up with. Oh my God.
It's entertaining, but he doesn't mean it to be.
And if any of y'all want to know, hit me behind the scenes, because that's not the focus of this, and I will send you some really good material to watch.
I know sometimes when my phone goes off and I look at it, and it's like, all right, another video just dropped, and Eric just spent the last 20 minutes watching it, and now he's got to let me know what he thinks about it. And it's anyway, I opened up a web browser today and hit the YouTube thing, and like in the first row of suggestions was one of this guy's videos, and I'm like, well, yep, I haven't gotten my text from Eric, but it's coming because he just dropped another video today. So as far as the vetting thing that Ryan mentioned and rating thing that Eric mentioned, there is something in the works that's not necessarily going to solve that problem. There have been numerous attempts throughout the years to try to create some sort of accrediting body for firearms instructors, and there's no formula for which it works, because they all become, any formula you look at becomes, all right, if they have the paper credentials, do they get in? And even though they've got the paper credentials, may not mean they've got the background credentials. But then if we start looking at it from background, does it become a clique, and we only let the people that we like in? and everything. So it's really touchy, I think, to try to come up with a workable solution in that. But there's some of us are working on something behind the scenes that's that may address some of that, but it's only going to matter to the people to whom it matters. So we are at 1 hour and 20 minutes right now. So we need to go around and do our final thoughts. Eric Lund, final thoughts, and where can people find you? What do you have coming up?
Right now, I'm primarily doing long range precision for hunting applications. So in October, I will be back out at our Texas location doing long range rifle. And hopefully in the fall, I'm going to try to maybe get a course here locally in Atlanta up on the schedule. It's been a while, and but I'll have more on that later. Other than that, you can check me out through All Fire Dynamics, probably through Instagram.
All right, John Hearn.
No particular closing thought. I do like some of the answers we've heard tonight. They were pretty good. Not the ones that came from Lee, but everybody else was pretty solid. I was going to throw out there as far as other stuff coming up. I'm going to be in the Chicago area at the end of September. I hear people complaining nobody ever comes to the Chicago area to teach. Well, I'm coming, so let's get some signups. The other open enrollment stuff I have, I'm going to be out at Mead Hall Range in November. Probably the best source for all those dates is jhearn.eventbrite.com. That's currently updated and has tickets to all that. And already booking 2023. I'll have those dates up in hopefully by the end of the month.
Shannon?
I'll be here in Georgia, mainly doing one-on-ones in Gainesville, Georgia. I'm doing some intro to IDPA classes for women. We're doing that through Armed Women of America, through Cherokee Gun Club. That's been a lot of fun. It's getting the ladies used to moving and shooting. I'll probably be putting together a ladies EDC class, learning the different options on how to carry, what's available out there. It would be a non-shooting class. And last but not least, we'll probably put together an image-based decisional drills class sometime probably towards the end of the year. So, and you can find me, like I said, on my website, shannonpable.com, or on Facebook.
All right, Ryan, I know earlier you mentioned you have no law enforcement or military background, but as your job as an armed courier, you were occasionally someone attempted to rob you in a parking lot. And I know you have a course on that, not how to rob people in a parking lot, but how to deal with it on the other end.
So, I mean, that would be a fun course to teach, actually.
No, it wouldn't.
Teaching somebody how to rob someone in the parking lot. So yeah, I just started a company. It's called Parking Lot Performance. The flagship class for that is Parking Lot Pistol. I've just got done workshopping it to a local group, Dory Miller Gun Club, which I'm a part of, Citizen Safety Academy. We're going to be probably doing the full class for the first time out at Top Gun in Memphis with Dugan and his guys out there. Hey, I like Dugan. Dugan's good people.
I was smiling at Eric's comment in the chat. I agree. Dugan is good people.
Dugan's good people. And he's got a really solid crew out there at Top Gun in Memphis. So me and Ock are probably going to take it out there sometime in November to actually do the full on 8-hour class. I've never built a full class like that from start to finish. So this is the first one I've ever done that wasn't NRA basic pistol, carry permit class, NRA CCW, stuff that was written out for me. So I'm really excited about that. Other than that, I'm at ontargetshootingsports.com, Ryan at ontargetshootingsports.com, Ryan at citizensafety.com. I'm either teaching or AIing for both of those places on a pretty regular basis. This was fun. I'm really glad I got to be here. Hearn I understand he's still a little upset about, the one win I got from him many years ago at TACCon, but I'm glad he decided he could be in the same room with me, virtually for long enough to talk. So that's good too. All right. See ya.
It's always fun to make fun of John Hearn. I just thought of something as you were talking, Ryan, and this may fire back up. I may need to let everybody go have one more round of comments after this. Great big giant red flag for me is anytime there is some sort of pivotal event and then all of a sudden people start throwing up classes to want to try to capitalize on the media attention of that pivotal event, such as the church in Texas where the individual made the 15-yard headshot and everything. And all of a sudden you had people with no background whatsoever in actual physical security throwing up, quote, church security classes.
Yeah.
And that to me is a big red flag. And I used to joke that after the Somali pirate thing that I was going to get a pontoon boat and go on a pond or a lake somewhere and teach anti-piracy classes. And I have no background in teaching anti-piracy, but hey, yeah, it doesn't stop these other people. And then
we could totally be pirates. Me and you, we could totally do it, dude.
yeah.
I mean, we could do this.
Well, Eric could be a Viking. We could do that.
Come
we could go
on.
invade island countries. And
well, pirates are just Vikings that couldn't handle cold weather.
That's right. So, and then one other thing just absolutely just irritates me is when, kind of along the lines of what we're saying, when we have something like an incident that happened in the mall in Indiana, the details aren't really publicly known, and we got people that are creating drills and stuff based off a comment made in a law enforcement briefing, which they had to come out the next day and issue a statement clarifying something that was put out in the briefing. And I have actually written incident reports based on arrests and incidents that I've dealt with. And then I see the media report that comes out based on my report and go, that's not what happened. It's not what happened. And yeah, but the internet takes it and makes these drills or whatever out of them. And then we need to be grounded in reality with that.
Dude, I got dudes coming into the range that can't put 10 rounds in a 4-inch circle at 7 yards, throwing the target to the back wall and trying to draw their gun and put 2 rounds at like their adjusted size target at 40 yards in however amount of time. I'm like, bro, what are you doing? You have a Blackhawk Serpa. Like, like let's prioritize on what we need to be focusing on a little bit. Like, come on. That thing is the Dijkstra drill is driving me nuts right now. I can't get past it.
But coming in the fall, I guess we'll be out on Lake Lanier teaching a Viking class, right, Eric?
I'm about it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I got to give thumbs up from Eric. Thanks to all the panel for being here tonight, and to the audience. We know that your most important asset is your time, and thank you for choosing to spend your time with us.